Hello and welcome to another episode of Coffee on the Couch. Now today we've got the privilege to have a special guest with us, Carna Brooks. Hello Carna.
Hi Madeleine, thank you for inviting me.
Now Carna is one of our associate coaches who joined the network of Olive Tree Neurodiversity. And just to give you a little bit of background, we have got several coaches who work in association with the network. That means that every coach have got their own business in their own entity. But we have got, although we do a similar thing, we each have our area of specialism. And we joined forces so that we can provide the best expertise and specialism for our clients. So when we work with people, we will get people in, or the associate coaches, to handle certain areas related to their area of specialism. But we also meet up quite a lot, discuss situations, plan together, support one another, share our specialisms with one another. So it's a real privilege to be working together, and Carna and I have been working together for quite some time now. We've done some joint coaching. So it's so lovely to have you on board and to finally introduce you to our subscribers.
Yes.
Now, Carna, I've noticed that you brought a tin of cat food with you. What's that about?
Right. This is the Carna cat food analogy.
Okay.
I always use my cat food analogy to introduce myself to people. I think also because this is the way I saw behaviour when I first stepped into the world of behaviour, and I felt a bit unsure. So if I were to ask you to take a bite of this, Madeleine, let's look at the label. We can see it's with chicken and there's jelly pieces. Is that selling it to you? Would you like to take a bite?
Not quite.
No.
Sorry.
No. So that is exactly how I feel. We sometimes feel, we as teachers feel, when we hear that you might get a child in your class with neurodiversity. And sometimes you deal with undesired behaviour, and there's a pupil in your class that displays undesired behaviour, and we look at the label and we feel, I don't feel skilled enough to deal with this. I don't know enough about that specific neurodiversity. Therefore, I'm just going to step backwards.
It's probably because the standard teacher training doesn't really go, you've got an overview of things, but it doesn't really go into a lot of depth understanding the neurodiversity and equipping you as a class teacher how to work with the children.
The umbrella is so big. I mean, if we talk about neurodiversity, we talk about learning difficulties. We
Several.
talk about autism, ADHD, social, emotional, mental health difficulties. We talk about desire due to undesired behaviour due to attachment disorder. It is so broad. And then I feel sometimes, in parents, you do as a parent you might be aware of some traits that your child is showing, but you're too scared to investigate and to take it further and to go for that early diagnosis because you're worried about the label that your child will have.
So true.
But if you did take a bite, Madeleine, if you did have a go, you would have noticed that it's just filled with normal jelly. There's just normal red jelly inside.
Yeah.
And so you would have been surprised with the outcome.
True.
You looked at a label and you decided to step back. But if you did have a go, you would have seen, actually, wow, this surprised me. And that's how I feel about behaviour and dealing with neurodiversity. For teachers, take that step. Take time to connect and invest and try something new. Try something out of your comfort zone. And the same with parents. Reach out for support. and learn about specific neurodiversity, to know how you can change your household. And what I didn't say earlier, Marlene, is that I love being practical. So I'm a practical person. That's why I brought my cat food analogy in. And that's how I teach, and that's how I learn, and that's how I coach.
That's a lovely analogy, and it actually fits in so well with what we're trying to do with Olive Tree Neurodiversity, raising that awareness and getting people to understand that neurodiversity is just the difference and the range of way that people think, and to see that beauty in it, and to see what the person brings. On our website, we also talk about taking the time to get to know the person, to see what they can bring as an individual and the strengths they've got, instead of just looking at the label. So I really love that analogy. That's really great. Thank you. Now, would you like to tell us a little bit about your journey? Just to mention, Carna is our behaviour specialist, and we rely on her quite a lot for those practical skills. I'm very much the theory person and trying to understand the reason behind and the science behind things. And Carna is the one who comes up with all the really practical day-to-day things. So can you tell us a little bit about what shaped your journey and your specialism?
Yes, so I am a teacher. I did my qualification in South Africa. I think that's very clear on the accents. Both me and Marlene have very Afrikaans backgrounds. I did my bachelor's degree in early years in South Africa, and then I came to the UK 18 years ago, and I started off as a supply teacher just to get a flavour of all of the schools. How does it, a flavour of all of the schools? How does it work? How does the curriculum work? The school hours and the children, the culture. And after about 8 months, I ended up in a long-term position in an EBD school. Now, EBD stands for, back then, stood for Children with Emotional and Behaviour Difficulties.
That's what we nowadays talk about as the SEHM, social, emotional, and mental health.
So SEM.
Yeah, with an H at the end.
social, emotional, mental health difficulties, and that's where I were intrigued by behaviour. I was fascinated by behaviour, and I moved on. It was only a long-term position, and I moved on to a pupil referral unit. And a pupil referral unit is, as we explain it to parents, it's like a halfway school. Children are being excluded from a mainstream setting because of their behaviour, because they couldn't cope with the standard and the expectations of a mainstream school. However, sometimes the reason behind the behaviour has not been identified yet. And while they are with us, we then go through that diagnosis and the process, and supporting the parents and helping to equip the children with the right skills to either go back into a mainstream school or to go to a school suitable for their needs. And that's where the EBD school where I used to work, the SEMH school, those children who then get a diagnosis for SEMH, they would then go to that specialised setting for their behaviour. And you might then get a school for children with multi-learning difficulties or severe learning difficulties, and all sorts of different neurodiversity, maybe, children with autism, or with speech and language. So there's different specialised settings for different neurodiversity.
So that's actually where that highlights the importance and explains a bit why that diagnosis is very helpful, just to be able to hone it down to understand the individual child's needs, how their brain works, and what you can do to then get them the right kind of support that they need.
Exactly. And what I didn't say earlier is like this halfway school. Sometimes children only come to us for respite. So the schools say, look, this child is on the verge of being excluded for the behaviour that we see. However, we feel if this child is equipped with the right skills, then and they're able to transfer this into the right to a mainstream setting, then we can give it another go. And then what we do is we get a child for 6 weeks or sometimes 12 weeks. So we do continuous assessments and go and support this child back in that same mainstream setting, and then teach the adults in that setting the different strategies and skills to accommodate that child. So if it is a child with autism, for example, then we would make sure that this child has a separate work bay and the start and finish boxes, and maybe ear defenders to block out noise. If it is a child with you or familiar with dyslexia, then we would make sure that the surroundings, the environment and the background on the interactive whiteboard and all of that, and the font and everything is more suitable to accommodate this child.
So you've had a lot of experience with behaviour and tried out lots of different strategies as well.
Yes. Yeah. And I have to say, the emotions behind a child who has just been excluded from mainstream school, and that feeling of rejection, and along with the parents, those parents have not had a good experience with that previous mainstream school. So that's my first point of communication, is with the parents, and trust, to build that trust with parents, to say, look, let's do this together. It's let's work together. And I think that's why I feel so strong about coaching, to rather work with parents more than with schools. So in my other job I work with schools, but with the coaching I work with the parents, to empower parents to know that they can deal with this at home, and they can make a big difference by having that foundation at home.
And this is exactly why we've gone into working together, because we're both so passionate. We've both worked in schools. We've seen that there's a lot of support out there for the children, but this is not something that just affects the child. It's something that affects the whole family. It affects the parents, it affects the other siblings, and we've recognized that huge impact it has on the whole family. And that's why we've started doing what we're doing. We wanted to be able to give the parents a place to go to where we can empower them, and we can give them that support to understand not just how to work with their child, but also how to cope in the system, and that constant battle that they need to fight for their children. Just giving them that bit of emotional support, and how to work with other siblings as well to get that understanding.
And one thing that I tend to do is I use my home experiences quite a lot when I work with parents, because I'm also a mummy. So I'm not just approaching my coaching sessions and this program from a specialist teacher perspective. I know the real behind it all. So yes, I do understand how parents feel. And I like to give my practical examples of what I use at home too.
Yeah, and also, it just makes us a bit more relatable to parents. When parents know and understand that we are all parents as well, and we've gone through that, and we know what the difficulties of life bring with children. So yes, we've been building all of these things into our coaching programs, and we always start off with the creating that understanding of the child's needs. So whatever the child's specific learning difficulty is, we'll get one of the person with the most specialism in that area to come and help explain, and make sure that you've got a sound understanding of your child's needs. And then we do quite a a lot on emotional intelligence as well, because we've talked about all the big emotions that goes with it.
Yes.
And then the communication, and that's also something that you specialize in, isn't it? The communication
So
needs.
after the pupil referral unit, this was 7 years ago, I started to open inclusion hubs in mainstream schools. So taking those skills to into mainstream settings, which was quite easy because that helped then schools not to actually send the children elsewhere. In my little inclusion hub, I would reach out to teachers and go and implement strategies in class, and give staff training within that setting, and also knowing the children very well. So knowing what would work for each child. I went off to Dubai and I did the same in Dubai, and now I'm back, and the next job that I'm starting from next week is actually more into communication and interaction, and it would be working over the borough, and going into schools, different schools, and supporting the SEN and inclusion departments within different schools to help to accommodate those children. So I'm now going to be able to transfer my skills onto other adults rather than doing the job myself. So yes, communication, interaction, that is my next journey. And as you said, in the programs that we do provide, coaching programs, we focus a lot on how we communicate with our children. And that was something I said to Madeleine when we first met. When I worked in the pupil referral unit, I realized how we respond to behaviour can either escalate or de-escalate. And communication and body language is such a crucial part in de-escalating behaviour.
But it also starts with parents understanding and analyzing their own emotions, because very often the way we react is a trigger because we've had some childhood experience that somehow relates to what we're seeing here. Either, we've been in that situation as a child, so we know how frustrating it is, and we come from the point of we don't want our child to go through that, or it's the way that people reacted towards us before we know it, we react in the same way. So that's why we also bring in that understanding and emotional intelligence, so that you can be equipped to analyze these kind of things, to know, are you responding in a way that's actually helping your child with their needs in that moment, or is it kind of a fight or flight response because of some of your own experiences before? So that way parents can then model the right kind of behavior that's needed for dealing with difficult situations.
And I also think, sometimes we don't realize how much we absorb each other's feelings. And when your child is in that crisis point, that's exactly how you start to feel. And how important it then is to actually have we have a flock.
Got a visitor.
How important it is to how you deal with those feelings, because you are modeling it to your child, and that is how your child will then deal with it. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in. And I have to say, the way that we've been conditioned when we were younger, didn't encounter all of the neurodiversity. So we live in a different world, and the strategies are different, and the understanding is totally different.
Yeah, but the world has came quite a long way in terms of understanding neurodiversity. So there's been a lot of really positive changes, and I feel especially in the UK, I think some countries still have a long way to go, but especially in the UK, the accommodation and the understanding of neurodiversity has definitely come a long way. Now, we provide as a network, we provide a lot of information and training and courses for parents, but we also have the coaching. And how do you see the value of coaching as opposed to just, parents educating themselves and, going into learning online and those kind of things?
Well, one thing I can say, Madeleine, about our coaching is it is very individualized. And one thing that I've learned in behavior is that there isn't a one size fits all. So when parents go and Google something, or when you go to training, there are a lot of training out there which is for free. Then unfortunately, it's not individualized to your setting. So you need to be able to put theory into practice and to put those strategies into your household and what suits you. So that's where our coaching comes in. We work with the parents. We have a problem solving approach and we work together to get to know how everything works in your household and to work out an individual plan that will support you with your situations that you encounter at home.
And it's also giving parents just that opportunity to talk about it, to talk through their own feelings, to talk through their own strategies. Because sometimes when you actually just explain to somebody what you do, you realize, oh, hang on, maybe this, maybe I could try something, and it triggers some new ideas of things. And
exactly. And
just having somebody else that you can actually talk to, that understand and don't judge.
Because that's what I was going to say, in a non-judgmental environment.
Yeah.
To just offload. And I know some of the strategies that we might give has been used before. And that's to just say, actually, I've tried this before and it didn't work. But now that we, let's figure out a different way. Now that we talk about consistency and maybe adapting it to this level, then we can try it again. And me as a parent and a teacher, there's lots of strategies I've used before that simply didn't work. So I tried something else and now I revisit that again. So it is it's a problem solving platform where we talk together, you are being listened to, and you are getting the resources and tactics and motivation to make change in your home life.
And we do quite a lot on specific support for you as parents as well, coping strategies for you, because when you have got a child with difficulties, you are so used to constantly feeling that you are being judged as a parent, and the thing is, a stranger on the bus just see that your child is throwing a tantrum and think automatically that you haven't got control over your child, and you're not disciplining your child, and they have no understanding. So we do, in our coaching, we do quite a lot on that kind of support for parents as well, because that is a difficult place to be, and you can't do it alone. You really can't do it alone.
And I think when we focus on mindfulness too, sometimes you think, oh, I know how to calm myself down, but we do say that you can't pour from an empty cup, and you need to take your well-being into account and make sure you get enough rest, exercise, balanced food, a balanced diet, and all of those things. So we have a specific focus on that, so that you have the capacity to deal with your child's behavior and also for your child too. Children need to have access to a lot of mindfulness approaches in order to show the desired behavior and to have the capacity to stop and think.
Yeah, and we give parents that equipment so that they can then become their child's coach. And lifelong support, as we always say, because the parent is the constant in their life, and they're going to be there all the time. So, wow, thank you, Carna. This was really great. Really lovely talking to you. And I'm sure that our followers I've also enjoyed this conversation, learning more about what we do at Olive Tree. So please do subscribe, especially if you subscribe on the website. You get to be informed about special promotions and things that we have on coaching deals or webinars and things that will come up. You'll be notified first. And please be in touch and leave comments. We would love to hear from you. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.